You ever get the feeling a season pivots on a single breath? For the Vikings, that breath is J.J. McCarthy walking back onto the field this Sunday. He practiced in full, cleared the concussion protocol, and is expected to start against the Washington Commanders, a return that feels less like a simple roster move and more like the reset button this offense desperately needs. ESPN.com, let's not pretend the drama is new. Minnesota limped into last Sunday's blackout in Seattle with questions stacked like unread emails. McCarthy missed that game after a concussion suffered in Week 12, and the Vikings offense promptly imploded. Undrafted rookie Max Brosmer, thrown into the deep end with little prep, completed 19 of 30 for 126 yards and tossed 4 interceptions in a 26-0 loss where Minnesota coughed up the ball 5 times. That kind of outing isn't just a loss on the ledger, it's a lesson in how fragile a team's offensive identity becomes without its starter. Reuters, here's what matters. McCarthy isn't returning to paper over a problem with fairy dust. He's coming back because the structure changes when the guy who the offense was designed around is under center. A starter brings rhythm, scripted opening drives, practiced cadence, timing with receivers and linemen that can only be manufactured through repetition. With McCarthy in, the Vikings get a quarterback who's been through those reps this year, even if the results have been uneven. That stability is worth tangible points in a season that feels precarious. Vikings.com. Now let's be honest about those uneven results. McCarthy's rookie year tape is a mixed bag, flashes of timing and poise coupled with too many giveaways. Before the concussion, he'd thrown multiple interceptions in several recent games, a pattern that underlines why Minnesota is still searching for consistency. The difference, though, is that McCarthy's mistakes come with context. First read chemistry problems, an offensive line that's morphed multiple times, and a unit that's missing the kind of continuity development requires. With him back, coaches can stop firefighting the basics and start refining reads, tempo, and protection schemes. ESPN.com, that's the play call reality for Week 14. Expect the Vikings to narrow the menu early. Quick throws, slants, screens, and a steady dose of the run to reestablish pace and protect the quarterback. Let the first 10 plays be a controlled prescription, a confidence engine that takes the weight off McCarthy's shoulders. If you give him clean pockets and high percentage reads, you'll see safer decisions and fewer negative plays. If you keep feeding him trick plays and expecting improvisation under pressure, you'll get the same public school lessons Brosmer learned the hard way last week. Coaching choices this week will show whether Minnesota wants stabilization or spectacle. Vikings.com. There's also an urgent roster subtext. With Carson Wentz out for the season and Desmond Ridder recently cut from the practice squad, the Vikings are thin behind the starter. That matters because it means McCarthy's health matters more than ever. We can't afford an emergency flash in the pan that leaves the team hunting for competence on the fly. The coaching staff will have zero tolerance for reckless reads early in the game because the backup options are not proven. The margin for error is paper thin and season defining. Vikings.com. The matchup itself isn't a mercy mission. Washington will be coming off its own quarterback shuffle, big news for receiver matchups and pressure packages, and early reports suggest the Commanders are getting Jaden Daniels back, which changes the game's chessboard dramatically. Daniels' return means Minnesota is facing mobility and playmaking from the other sideline, which raises the stakes for every third down decision and every blitz pickup. The Vikings must manage the game clock, control possessions, and avoid turnovers that gift momentum to a quarterback who can flip a field with his legs. Let's break down what success looks like for McCarthy and the Vikings in Week 14. First, protect the football. This is non-negotiable. 3 and outs that turn into short fields for the opponent will make the season's slope steeper. Second, reestablish the run game and use it to open play action. Fewer downfield shots early, more payoffs later. Third, keep third downs manageable. Hit the underneath windows and live to push the clock forward. If Minnesota can execute those 3 things, they'll create a week where McCarthy's return feels like progress and not a bandage on a broken wrist. Vikings.com. Now for the human side. McCarthy's first season has been a public apprenticeship, Applause for flashes, jeers for turnovers, and a spotlight that never dims. Clearing concussion protocol and returning to the lineup is as much a mental test as a physical one. Concussions alter how a player reads the game. The mental patience to reaccept the small, safe throws before chasing the big home run is the mark of growth. This week is as much about confidence as it is about completion percentage. If McCarthy walks out of Sunday feeling steady, that's a psychological win that could ripple through the rest of the schedule. ESPN.com. The bigger picture, Minnesota sits at 4-8 with 5 games left. These are not just games, they're data points for an offseason plan. If McCarthy looks better, the Vikings can lean into building around him and fix the roster pieces that support growth. Offensive line continuity, receiver scheming, and a stable backup plan. If he struggles, the team will face the harder question, is the long-term answer here, or does the front office need to recalibrate the position in 2026? Either way, these next 5 starts are a meaningful sample. So here's the closing image. Sunday, a filled stadium, the crowd's murmur turning into a cheer as a young quarterback jogs onto the field, not because the headlines demanded it, but because football proved what it always does. The best remedy for chaos is structure. McCarthy's return is that structure. It won't fix everything overnight. It won't erase last week's shutout, but it gives Minnesota the one thing they've been missing most, a chance to play the kind of clean, repeatable football that turns hope into wins. If they take it, the Vikings can salvage pride and purpose. If they fumble it, the offseason's questions will get louder and more urgent. Either way, the season's next turn starts with the snap of the ball on Sunday. Watch the first series closely. You'll see whether this team wants to stabilize and grow or whether it will keep learning lessons the hard way. J.J. McCarthy is back on the field, and barring any last-minute drama, he's set to retake the Vikings starting job on Sunday. Kevin O'Connell made it plain. McCarthy is symptom-free after the concussion that knocked him out in Week 12, and he's expected to complete the full practice Wednesday that will officially clear him from protocol. If that goes as planned, have a normal prep week and open against the Commanders. That's the reset Minnesota desperately needed after a 26-0 embarrassment in Seattle that exposed just how thin this roster is when the quarterback position gets scrambled. With Carson Wentz already on season-ending IR, the Vikings were forced to start undrafted rookie Max Brosmer in Week 13, and it went about as badly as anyone could imagine. Brosmer completed 19 of 30 for 126 yards and threw 4 interceptions. The Vikings turned the ball over 5 times total and got shut out. Harsh but true, that snap underlined how much the team needs a competent starter under center. So what changes this week? For starters, stability. McCarthy being cleared to practice means the offense can stop improvising and start installing consistent reps. That matters more than you think. Timing routes, protection checks, and third down scripting all suffer when the quarterback carousel spins. A returning starter gives the staff a chance to run a full week of installs, adjust the game plan to his strengths, and actually evaluate whether McCarthy's second season is trending up or still stuck in neutral. Make no mistake, McCarthy's record this season has been ugly. He's 2-4 as a starter, completing just 54.1% of his passes for 154.8 yards per game, and his touchdown to interception ratio, 6 TDs, 10 INTs, screams growing pains. He's been prone to poor reads and bad turnovers in sequence. 2 interceptions in each of his previous 3 games before the concussion, to be exact. Those aren't flukes. They're pattern flags that Minnesota's coaching staff and front office are watching closely as the calendar ticks toward the offseason. But here's the nuance. Those struggles don't automatically mean the Vikings should hit the panic button and declare the pick a bust. He's young, he's inexperienced, and right now he's operating in a messy environment. Patchwork offensive line, limited weapons, and coaching staffs trying to mask issues rather than attack them. The next 5 games are not just about wins and losses. They're a live audition for McCarthy and a data dump for the front office. Does he show cleaner reads, better anticipation, and fewer risky throws, or is the tape more of the same? Roster moves this week underline the team's approach. With McCarthy likely starting, the Vikings cut Desmond Ridder from the practice squad, a sign they're not hunting for a veteran quick fix at the expense of continuity. Ridder, a 2022 third-round pick, had been the emergency depth behind Brosmer last week, but Minnesota decided to simplify the room. McCarthy to start, Brosmer the primary backup, and the staff will try to stabilize the offense around that pairing. There's an emotional angle, too. Getting McCarthy back signals confidence in the player. The Vikings invested a high draft pick in, and it gives the locker room a needed jolt. Confidence matters. A starter who looks and practices like the guy the coaches plan with changes how teammates prepare and how play calls are imagined. It also spares Brosmer from another impossible audition. The last thing a newly drafted, undrafted QB needs is to have his limited reps